Hello again. I'm taking a break from the heat outside. It's gorgeous, but it is very warm. So I thought I'd come and read you the next part of the story. Now, if you remember, the Saucepan Man has just turned up at the children's home. Just a little bit awkward. So, chapter 15. The Saucepan Man goes to the wrong land. Mother and the children stared at the queer old saucepan man as he came in at the gate. He wore an extra large size saucepan for a hat, and as he came he knocked 2 pans together and sang a queer nonsense song that went like this. 2 beans for a pudding, 2 cherries for a pie, 2 legs for a table with a tittle high tie. At the last high he banged on the door with a saucepan. Mother opened it. "Don't make such a noise," she said. "No, I haven't seen any boys," said the saucepan man, and he clashed his pans together so loudly that Mother jumped. Then he caught sight of the children and waved to them eagerly. "Oh, there you are. Moonface told me where you lived." "Whoever is he?" said Mother in wonder. "Children, is this queer old man all right?" "Oh, yes," said Joe, hoping that Mother wouldn't ask them too many questions. "Can we take him into the garden and talk to him, Mother? He makes such a noise indoors." "Very well," said Mother, who wanted to get on with her washing. "Take him along." "A song?" said the saucepan man obligingly. "Did you say you wanted a song, madam?" He began to sing again and crashed his pans in time to his song. 2 pigs for the pantry, 2 shoes for the horse, 2 hats for the tigers, pink ones of course. The children hustled him out into the back garden. "That's a very, very silly song of yours," said Bessie loudly, right in his ear. "What's it called?" "It hasn't got a name," said the saucepan man. "I made it up as I go along. It's quite easy. Every line but the last one begins with the word 2. I'm sorry you think it's silly." He looked rather offended. Then suddenly he smiled again and said, "I've come to ask you all to tea in my cottage." "Will Mr. What's-his-name be there?" asked Joe, who wasn't at all anxious to meet him again. "Yes, you'd better brush your hair," said the saucepan man, looking at Joe's untidy hair. "I said, will Mr. What's-his-name be there?" said Joe loudly. "Something in the air?" said the saucepan man, and he looked up anxiously. "Not a thunderstorm, you don't mean?" "No, I certainly don't mean a thunderstorm," said Joe with a groan. "Yes, we'll come. We must ask Mother first." Mother said they could go, though she still didn't very much like the look of the old saucepan man. "Goodbye," she said to him as he went off with the children. He really was a most peculiar sight, but he had such a twinkly sort of face that the 3 children couldn't help liking him and trusting him. They soon came to the faraway tree and saw that Moonface had thought of a marvellous idea. He had borrowed Mother Washalot's biggest washing basket and let it down on a rope. Then, as soon as they were all safely in it, he and Silky meant to haul them up to save them the long, long climb. "That's a really good idea," said Joe, delighted. They all climbed in. It was a bit difficult to get the saucepan man in too, but they managed at last, though he seemed to find it most uncomfortable to sit on his saucepans. "Up we go," shouted Joe as the basket swung upwards through the branches. It ran very smoothly, and the children enjoyed the smooth ride. At last they came to a big branch and stepped out on it. It was quite near Moonface's house at the top. Moonface was there, winding up the rope, a grin on his big shining face. "How did you like that?" he asked. The saucepan man looked at him anxiously. "Cat?" he said. "Another cat? Dear me, I hope it won't escape into my land. I've got my mice there." "Now he'll go looking for cats again," said Bessie, and sure enough, the saucepan man began to peer here and there, calling, "Puss, puss, puss." "Never mind him," said Moonface. "Go on up the ladder. He wants you to go to tea with him in his funny saucepan-y house." "Come on, saucepan man," called Joe, If you want us to come to tea, we'd better go. The saucepan man heard. He stopped looking for cats and ran up the ladder. With a bound, he was through the hole in the cloud and right above. And no sooner had he gone out of sight than he began to yell, "Ooh! Oh, wow! Ooh, ooh!" The children listened in alarm. "Whatever's the matter with him?" said Joe. Crash, bang, clang, smash. "It sounds as if he's rolling about on all his kettles and saucepans," said Bessie. "What can he be doing?" "Ooh, wow!" shouted the saucepan man above them. "Stop it! Ow! Stop it!" "Somebody must be attacking him," cried Joe. He leapt up the ladder. "Come on, everyone! We'll soon send any enemies off." He shot up the ladder, followed by Bessie, Fanny and Moonface. They all clambered through the hole in the clouds and stood in the land above. But, oh my goodness me, it was no longer the land of the saucepan man, that tiny little cloud-edged country. It was another land altogether. "My land's gone!" shrieked the saucepan man. "I didn't know it had. This is somewhere else. Oh!" The bit of flat field he was standing on suddenly gave a shiver like a jelly, and then just as suddenly tipped itself up so that it made a hill. The saucepan man rolled down it at top speed, all his pans clattering like milk churns on a railway station. "This is Rocking Land," said Moonface in dismay. "Quick, come back to the ladder and get down the hole before we have forgotten where it is." "Hi, saucepan man, come over here to us." "Bus, did you say?" shouted back the saucepan man, picking himself up and looking round. "I can't see a bus. I'd like to catch one." "Come here to us, to us, to us," shouted Joe in despair. "The hole through the clouds is here. We must get back again quickly." The saucepan man began to run downhill to them, but the ground all round suddenly tipped backwards, and he and the children and Moonface found themselves running downhill away from the hole in the clouds where the precious ladder was. They tried to stop. They tried to walk back up the sudden hill, but the land tipped up all the more, and at last they couldn't stand but had to lie down. Then they began to roll downhill. How they rolled! Over and over and over, with the saucepan man making a frightful clatter with all his pans. "Ooh, ow, ooh!" cried everyone. "We've lost the hole," shouted Joe, but before he could say any more, he bumped into a bush that knocked all the breath out of him. Soon everyone lay in a heap at the bottom of the hill and tried to get back their breath. "Now we're in a fix," said Bessie, dusting herself. "What a very tiresome land to have got into. Does it do this sort of thing all the time, Moonface?" "Oh yes," said Moonface. "It never stops. It heaves up here and sinks down there and rocks to and fro and gives sudden little jerks. People do say there's a giant just underneath, trying to throw the land off his back." Chapter 16. What happened in the Rocking Land. The Rocking Land was really most annoying. No sooner did the children stand up very carefully and try to walk a few steps than the earth beneath them either fell away or tipped up or slanted sideways in a very alarming manner. Then down they all went, rolling over and over. The saucepan man made a tremendous noise and almost cried when he saw how battered his saucepans and kettles were getting. "Moonface," yelled Joe, "how can we get out of here? Don't you know?" "We can only get out by going down the ladder that leads to the faraway tree," shouted back Moonface, who was busy rolling down a little hill that had suddenly appeared. "Look for it all the time, or we'll never get away from here. As soon as the Rocking Land leaves the place where the faraway tree is, we've no way of escape." That gave the others a shock. The thought of living in a land of bumps and jerks and jolts was not at all pleasant. They all began to look about for the hole through which they had come into the Rocking Land. Soon the earth began to do something rather different. It heaved up and down very quickly, as if it were breathing fast. When it heaved up, it threw the children and the others into the air. When it breathed downwards, they rolled into holes and stayed there. was all dreadfully uncomfortable. "I'm getting awfully bruised," shouted Bessie. "For goodness sake, let's find a place on this land where it's not quite so fidgety. I think we must be on the worst bit." As soon as the earth stopped heaving about, they all ran to where a wood grew. And there, just inside the wood, they saw a shop. It was such a surprising thing to see in the rocking land that they all stopped and stared. "What does it sell?" said Joe. "You don't feel well?" said the saucepan man, quite deaf for a time. "I don't either. I feel as if I've been on a ship in a very rough sea." "I said, what does the shop sell?" said Joe. "No, I didn't hear a bell," said the saucepan man, looking round as if he expected to see an enormous bell somewhere. Joe gave it up. He looked hard at the shop. It was just a wide stall, with a tiny house behind it. No one seemed to be there, but smoke rose from the chimney, so someone must live there, Joe thought. "Come on," he said to the others. "Take hold of hands so that we keep together. We'll go and see this funny shop and see if we can get help." They walked up to it. The stall was piled high with cushions of all colours, each one with a rope tied to it. "How funny," said Bessie in astonishment. "Cushions with ropes. Now, who in the world would want to buy cushions here?" "Well, I would, for one," said Moonface at once. "My goodness, if I had a fine fat cushion tied on the front of me and another tied at the back, I wouldn't mind being bumped about nearly so much." "Oh, of course, that's what the cushions and ropes are for," said Bessie joyfully. "Let's buy some, then we shan't get bruised any more." Just then a sharp-nosed little woman with cushions tied all around her came out of the tiny house and looked at the children. She even had a small cushion tied on her head, and she did look funny. Fanny giggled. She was a dreadful giggler. The woman looked cross and glared at Fanny. "Do you want to buy my cushions?" she asked. "Yes, please," said Moonface, and he took out his purse. "How much are they?" "5 silver pieces of money each," said the woman, her little green eyes shining as she saw Moonface's purse. Moonface looked at her in dismay. "That's much too high a price," he said. "I've only got 1 silver piece." "Have you got any money, Saucepan Man?" "No, I don't sell honey," said the Saucepan Man. "Money, money, money," shouted Moonface, showing the Saucepan Man his purse. "Oh, money," he said, taking out an enormous purse from one of his kettles. "Yes, I've plenty." But the great big purse was empty. The Saucepan Man stared at it in dismay. "All my money must have fallen out when I rolled about," he said. "There's nothing left." The children had no money at all. The sharp-nosed little woman shook her head when Moonface begged her to lend them cushions in return for his silver piece. "I don't lend anything," she said, and went back to her house, banging the door loudly. "It's too bad," said Moonface, taking hold of Joe's hand and walking off gloomily. "Mean old thing. Oh, look, there are some more people, all wearing cushions." Sure enough, they met plenty of queer-looking folk, well padded with cushions of all colours, sizes and shapes, walking carefully about the paths. One man wore a big eider-down all round him, which Bessie thought was a fine idea. "The rocking land is quite peaceful for a change," she said to Fanny. But she spoke too soon, for even as she said these words, the earth began to heave up, first one way and then another. Over went the children, and everybody else rolled here and there and up and down as the land poked up first in one place and then in another. "Oh," groaned the children. "Wish I had a few cushions," cried Moonface, who had rolled on his big nose and bent it sideways. Crash, clank, bang went the Saucepan Man, rolling on his kettles and pans very noisily. "Ooh, look!" suddenly shrieked Bessie in delight, and pointed back towards the little wood where the shop was. The earth there had risen steeply upwards, and all the cushions were rolling down towards the children. "Grab them!" shouted Joe. So they all caught the cushions and began to tie them firmly round them. My goodness, it did make a difference when they rolled about. "It serves that mean old woman right," said the saucepan man, as he tried his hardest to put cushions round himself and his saucepans. Suddenly, one of the people of the rocking land gave a frightened shout and clutched hold of a nearby tree. A strange wind blew with a low musical sound. "Now what's going to happen?" cried Moonface. "Get hold of a tree! Get hold of a tree!" shouted the people round about. "When the wind makes that sound, it means that the whole of the land is going to tip up sideways and try to roll everyone off. Your only hope is to catch hold of a tree." Sure enough, the land was slowly tipping up, not in bits and pieces as it had done before, but the whole of it. It was very extraordinary. Moonface was frightened. He tried to get to a tree, and he shouted to the others, "Catch hold of a tree! Hurry up!" But not one of them could, for they had left the wood behind them and were in a field. Slowly and surely the land tipped sideways, and the children and Moonface and the old saucepan man began to roll downhill on their cushions. They were not bruised, but they were very much frightened. What would happen to them if they rolled right off the land? Down they went, and down, nearer and nearer to the edge of the rocking land. And then, quite suddenly, Moonface disappeared. One moment he was there, and the next he was gone. It was most peculiar. But in half a minute they heard his voice lifted up in the greatest excitement. I say, everyone! I've fallen down the hole to the ladder that leads to my faraway tree quite by accident. I'll throw my cushions up through the hole so you'll know where it is. Roll to it if you can. Make haste." Then the children and the saucepan man saw 2 cushions appear, and they knew where the hole was. They did their best to roll to it, and one by one they got nearer and nearer. Bessie rolled right down it, plop, and caught hold of the ladder as she fell. Joe rolled down next, missed the ladder, and landed with a bump on the top branch of the faraway tree. The saucepan man rolled to it next, but he got stuck in the hole, for he was now so fat with cushions, as well as kettles and saucepans, that he could hardly get through. "Oh, quick, quick, quick!" shouted Joe. "Get in, saucepan man, get in! Poor Fanny will roll right past the hole if you don't make haste." The saucepan man saw Fanny rolling past. Poor Fanny! Once she rolled past the hole, she couldn't possibly roll back again, for it would all be uphill. Quick as lightning, the saucepan man reached out his hand and caught hold of one of the ropes that tied Fanny's cushion to her back. She stopped with a jerk. One of the saucepan man's kettles gave way, and he fell through the hole to the ladder, making a tremendous noise. Moonface caught him, and then the saucepan man gave a tug at Fanny's rope, and she came down the hole too, landing softly on the top branch of the faraway tree, for she was well padded with her cushions. "Well, thank goodness you found the hole, Moonface," said everyone, still looking rather scared. What an adventure. That's it for today. Bye-bye.